My girlfriend of 7 years was going to marry the love of her life. On her wedding day, I had someone deliver my ashes to her as a wedding gift. She broke down on the spot, instantly turning her wedding into a funeral. I was dying. Lying in a hospital bed, my life was fading away. And the woman I had loved for 7 years was trying to pressure me into donating a kidney to the man she had never forgotten. What she didn't know was that I only had one kidney to begin with, and I was already terminally ill. But I had no intention of telling her. If she wanted my life, then she could have it. She had carried a torch for him for 7 years. I would make sure she remembered me for a lifetime. I would make her spend the rest of her days drowning in regret. The day I was diagnosed with late-stage stomach cancer was my 30th birthday. I couldn't believe it was real. I stood in the sterile hospital hallway, the world muffled and distant, unable to process the news. A notification chimed on my phone, pulling me back to reality. It was a generic birthday wish from my email provider. I let out a bitter laugh. Look at that, I thought. Something remembered my birthday. A wave of desolation washed over me, and I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. You have 3 months at most. You should prepare your family. The doctor's words echoed in my ears. Trembling, I pulled out my phone and found Chloe's number. I pressed the call button several times, only to hang up immediately. How could I tell her? How could I say the words, "I'm dying"? As I hesitated, my phone rang. It was her. I quickly wiped the tears from my eyes and forced a smile into my voice as I answered. "Chloe, what's wrong?" There was a long silence on the other end. I asked again, my anxiety mounting. Finally, she spoke, her voice flat and distant. "He's back." In that instant, it felt as though a stone had lodged itself in my throat, choking the air from my lungs. "Oh," was all I could manage before hastily ending the call. I was terrified of the words that would inevitably follow. Without realizing it, I had crumpled the diagnosis report in my hand into a tight ball. A violent cough racked my body, and I felt a warm, metallic taste in my mouth. I looked down at the floor. Blood. Help. Someone's coughing up blood, a passerby shouted. I had been wondering if I should tell her about my illness. Now, it seemed, there was no need. The he she spoke of was Julian, the man who had occupied a space in her heart for 7 long years. I had always known about him. 7 years ago, Chloe fell for Julian at first sight. She pursued him relentlessly for a year before he finally agreed to be with her. But the day after they got together, he vanished. He left the country without a word, leaving no trace behind. Chloe was devastated. She spent her days in a haze of tears. I watched her, my own heart aching for her. I did everything I could to pull her from her despair, staying by her side. A silent guardian ready to appear the moment she needed me. I was open about my feelings for her, and eventually, my devotion wore down her defenses. She agreed to be with me. For 7 years, she was the perfect girlfriend. She never got angry if I came home late. She never checked my phone or questioned me if I was friendly with other women. She said she trusted me unconditionally. Looking back, it wasn't trust. It was indifference. I knew a part of her heart was always reserved for Julian. I didn't care. I believed that my unwavering love would one day conquer that final territory. But fate had other plans. Julian's return shattered my fantasy completely. When I got home, Chloe was dozing on the sofa. I tiptoed over and gently draped a blanket over her. The slight touch woke her instantly. "You're back." "Yeah. You look terrible. Are you not feeling well?" Her sudden concern brought an unexpected sting to my eyes. I didn't want her to see my weakness. "No, I'm fine. Just haven't been sleeping well. Have you eaten? I'll go make dinner." I turned to escape before I lost control, but she stopped me. "I've already eaten. Sit down. We need to talk." My heart dropped. A sickening premonition crept over me. "Let's break up." I had been expecting it, but hearing the words from her lips was like a physical blow. A sharp pain shot through me, a vicious knot of agony that started in my chest and spread to my stomach. I couldn't tell if it was my heart breaking or the cancer devouring me from within. I kept my back to her, unwilling to let her see me crumble. "What about the apartment?" "I don't want it. It's all yours. We had bought it together. We had planned to get married. Now, those plans were just another ghost. Can we wait 3 months?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She refused without a second's thought. "There's no point. Let's just have a clean break." She stood to leave. I spun around and grabbed her arm, a desperate idea forming. If I told her I was dying, would she stay? Surely, after 7 years, she must feel something for me. "Chloe," I began, my voice trembling. I'm. An urgent ring from her phone cut me off. Her expression tensed as she answered. I could faintly hear Julian's name. As I leaned in to listen, she hung up and bolted from the room as if the house were on fire. It had to be Julian. Only he could provoke such a powerful reaction from her. The difference between love and its absence had never been so stark. But, still, a foolish part of me hoped she would stay with me for the last few months of my life. After all, she was the woman I had loved for 7 years. It was 3 days before Chloe came home again. She looked exhausted, utterly drained. I was determined to tell her about the cancer before she could bring up the breakup again, but I was too slow. I have uremia, she said, handing me a medical report. Mid to late stage. I stared at the paper, completely stunned. I looked at her, searching for any sign of illness. It didn't make sense. I had always paid close attention to her health. She had never shown any symptoms. But the diagnosis was there in black and white. Uremia. Mid to late stage. As I tried to read the details, she snatched the report back. Thinking I had upset her, I rushed to reassure her. This is treatable, right? I've read about it. Don't worry, Chloe. We'll get through this. You'll be fine. Yes, she said, her voice filled with a profound sadness. The doctor said I need a kidney transplant. It's my only chance. Her sorrow was real, but it wasn't for herself. It was for someone she loved more than life. It was a detail I tragically failed to notice at the time. After Chloe's diagnosis, I completely forgot that I was a dying man. All the doctor's warnings faded into the background. When she asked me, Leo, if your kidney was a match, would you donate it to me? I answered without a shred of hesitation. Yes. Before going for the compatibility test, I told my best friend, Mark, about my decision. I asked him to handle my affairs after I was gone. I knew that donating the kidney would be a death sentence, not because of the cancer, but because I only had one. But I was going to die in 3 months anyway. If my death could save Chloe's life, it seemed like a worthy sacrifice. But there was a problem. As a terminal cancer patient, I wasn't eligible to be an organ donor. No legitimate hospital would ever approve the procedure. I found a shady clinic, one that operated in the gray areas of the law, and paid them to do the compatibility tests. The results came back, a perfect match. The process was grueling. The numerous tests took a toll on my already weakened body. When the doctor at the clinic discovered I had only one kidney and was riddled with cancer, he strongly advised against the donation. But my mind was made up. I begged him not to tell Chloe the truth about my condition. Moved by my pleas, he agreed to keep my secret. I rushed to share the good news with Chloe, but as I approached her apartment, I overheard a conversation that stopped me dead in my tracks. The person who needed the kidney wasn't her. It was Julian. Julian, don't worry, I heard her say through the door. I'll be right outside the operating room on the day of the surgery. Chloe, came his weak reply. Can I meet the kind person who is donating their kidney to me? He's a very private person. He doesn't want any attention. It's better if we just respect his wishes. I couldn't believe it. She had fabricated such an elaborate lie, all to save him. It all made sense now, her constant excuses whenever. I offered to go with her to a doctor's appointment. I had never pushed, afraid my own symptoms might surface in front of her. Our 7 years together instantly became a cruel joke. Fine. If she wanted my life this badly, I would give it to her. But I would make her spend the rest of her days paying for it. I would make the memory of me a wound that would never heal. On the day of the transplant, I gave Mark his final instructions. The moment that operating room door closes behind me, you tell Chloe everything. Tell her I only had one kidney. Tell her about the cancer. And then you tell her this. She is my murderer. I looked him in the eye. Remember, wait until the door is completely shut. She wanted to wait outside for Julian? Perfect. I would give her a front row seat to the spectacle of her own damnation. I almost looked forward to it. How would she feel, standing there, knowing that I was dying on the table inside, and that she was the one who had sent me there? But on the day of the surgery, they never showed up. All day I waited at the hospital, and in the end, the only news I received was that Chloe had tried to kill herself. I was lying in a hospital bed myself, getting in 4 drip to manage the pain, when Mark called with the news. What? That's impossible. Our scheduled surgery was for 11 in the morning. When they didn't arrive, I called Chloe, but my calls went straight to voicemail. It made no sense. She had gone to such great lengths to deceive me. Why would she back out now? This was her chance to have a life with Julian. I waited the entire day, a growing unease settling in my stomach. Finally, I called her best friend, Linda, who told me everything. Chloe was in a coma at Central Hospital. I don't believe you. I yelled into the phone. Julian was waiting for a kidney. Chloe loved him too much to abandon him now. Come to Central and see for yourself if you don't believe me, Linda said, her voice weary. I ripped the 4 from my arm, ignoring the shouts of the nurses, and staggered out of the room. I had to know if it was true. When I arrived and saw her lying in that bed, an oxygen mask over her face, the last of my strength vanished. I slid down the wall, my mind reeling. Why? Why would she do this? Because she's a fool, a voice said behind me. It was Linda. She explained that Chloe had never told Julian that I was the donor. That morning, as they were leaving for the hospital, he had accidentally discovered the truth. He refused to accept a kidney from me and called off the surgery. In a desperate attempt to force him to go through with it, Chloe had threatened to take her own life. She loved him that much, enough to sacrifice my life, and even her own, just to save him. Fine. If that's what she wanted, I would help her. 3 days later, Chloe woke up. The first thing she did was frantically search for Julian, ignoring her own weakened state, her bare feet padding restlessly on the cold floor. Julian. Linda, how is he? Did he have the surgery? Where is he? He's fine, Linda soothed her. He's just weak, so he couldn't be here. Once she calmed down, she finally noticed me, sitting quietly by her bed. A look of panic crossed her face. For the first time, I saw what she was like when she truly cared for someone. She wanted to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Leo, you don't have to explain. I know everything, I said, my voice gentle. How could you be so foolish? I'm so sorry. I just love him so much. I know, I replied. And I love you that much. I'll do anything for you. I'll talk to Julian. I'll convince him to accept my kidney. Leo, thank you, and I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, I said, my words a perfect lie. I'm doing this because I want to. I don't blame anyone. Her eyes filled with guilt. It was exactly what I wanted. I might not have her love in my final months, but I would have her guilt. It would be a brand on her soul for the rest of her life. Linda took me to Julian's room. He looked pale and fragile against the white sheets. Hello, I said. I'm Leo, Chloe's boyfriend. The word X caught in my throat. I know who you are. I've known you for 7 years. He looked confused. Chloe was obsessed with you back then, I explained. I could only watch from a distance as she tried to win your heart. It was only after you left that I had a chance. In a way, I had him to thank. If he hadn't disappeared, she never would have even looked at me. Chloe told me you won't accept my kidney. Can I ask why? I already knew the answer. He felt guilty. Is it because you think it will be awkward, being with Chloe, knowing you have a part of me inside you? Don't worry about that. Her heart has always been yours. I was just a placeholder. For 7 years, I was living in a space that belonged to you. Now that you're back, I know it's time for me to leave. But if you want to be with her, you have to get well. After a long and carefully crafted speech, he finally agreed. Leo, thank you, he said. Don't mention it. I waved a dismissive hand. It's just 1 kidney. I've got a spare. It's not like I'm going to die. The lie tasted like acid. I was going to die. But what did death matter to a man whose heart was already dead? My only purpose now was to drive the final, invisible knife into Chloe's heart. Afterward, I spoke to Julian's doctor. How serious is his condition? Could the transplant be postponed for a month? He's in the advanced stages, the doctor replied. With a matching donor, the sooner the better. He can't wait more than 3 months. Perfect. It was all falling into place. My own health was deteriorating rapidly. Collapsing from pain and vomiting blood became routine. To avoid suspicion, I told Chloe I needed to rest and prepare for the surgery, and I moved into a small apartment near the hospital. It allowed me to get my own treatment in secret and to execute the next phase of my plan. I began to care for Julian. Chloe had been running herself ragged, staying by his side day and night. I offered to take the night shift. At first, she refused, not because she was worried about me, but because her guilt was eating her alive. I had not only forgiven her deception, but I was now offering to care for the man she had chosen over me. Chloe, I know how important he is to you. I told her, my voice dripping with false sincerity. But you're important to me. I'm not asking to be with you. I just want to see you happy and healthy. Let me do this for you. Please. She finally agreed. The person who reacted most strongly was Linda. Leo, are you trying to be a martyr? She demanded, cornering me in the hallway. She cheats on you, lies to you, and you're not only giving her lover your kidney, you're taking care of him too? I looked at her, her face flushed with anger, and found her surprisingly endearing. A playful thought crossed my mind. Why are you so worked up? Don't tell me you've fallen for me. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. You're right, Leo. I have. I've been in love with you for years. Her sudden confession stunned me. My instinct was to run. I had always known she had feelings for me. If I wasn't dying, maybe I would have chosen her. She deserved love far more than Chloe did. But I was no longer qualified to love anyone. Chloe just called. I have to go. I stammered, making my escape. For the next few weeks, I endured my own agony while tenderly caring for Julian. Every time Chloe saw me, her eyes would well up with tears. I didn't know if they were for me or for him, but I knew the seeds of guilt I had planted were beginning to sprout. A week before the surgery, the pain became unbearable. It felt like 1,000 knives were twisting in my stomach. As I left Julian's room, every step was torture. I finally collapsed in the hallway, curling into a ball on the cold floor, groaning in pain. Leo, what's wrong? Linda had found me. She rushed to my side, trying to pull me to my feet and drag me to the emergency room. I couldn't let that happen. If she found out, Chloe would find out, and my entire plan would be ruined. It's nothing. I just skipped dinner. My stomach's a little upset. I lied, forcing myself to stand and even do a little hop to prove I was fine. She reluctantly let it go. The next day, I saw my own doctor. He told me the cancer had spread. If there's anything you still want to do, he said gently, you should do it now. I knew my time was running out. That night, it happened again. The pain was worse, and this time, the blood came with it. And this time, Chloe saw me. Her face went white as she stared at the blood I had coughed onto the floor. I could see the panic in her eyes, a fear that was deeper than anything I had ever seen from her before. I knew what she was afraid of. Don't worry, I gasped, wiping my mouth. It's nothing. The surgery can still go ahead. Leo, don't do it, she whispered, her voice shaking. Don't give Julian the kidney. We'll find another donor. I looked at her, a flicker of something stirring in the ashes of my heart before I extinguished it. Her change of heart was not a surprise. It was all part of the plan. Don't be ridiculous, Chloe, I said, forcing a light tone. The surgery is in a few days. We can't just cancel. You know how hard it is to find a match. She grabbed my arm. I'm taking you to a doctor. Now. This was a new Chloe. The old Chloe would have called an ambulance at best. She would never have shown this kind of raw, personal concern. It was a shame I no longer cared for it. I'm fine, really. Just exhausted from the night shifts, I insisted. Exhaustion doesn't make you vomit blood, she fired back. Just then, Julian called out weakly from his room. Chloe, are you there? She let go of my arm and rushed to his side. I breathed a sigh of relief. But the next day, she cornered me again, insisting I see a doctor. I finally agreed, but not before arranging things with my own physician. I asked him to lie for me, to tell Chloe I was fine. He refused to actively lie, but agreed he wouldn't volunteer the truth unless she specifically asked for my full records. I knew she wouldn't. She didn't want to know. Even after the doctor gave me a clean bill of health, she was adamant. I don't care what he says. I won't let you donate your kidney to Julian. Why? I don't want to be indebted to you, she said, turning away. I heard her mutter something under her breath, something that sounded like, because it hurts to see you like this, you fool. But all I heard was her refusal. Her guilt was making her waver. I learned from Linda that she had been a nervous wreck ever since seeing me collapse. Linda, fueled by her own feelings for me, had been stoking the flames of Chloe's conscience. But this wasn't enough. It wasn't time for her guilt yet. As I wondered how to force her hand, fate, in the form of Julian, intervened once more. That night, his condition took a sudden, drastic turn. The doctor said he needed the transplant immediately. Chloe was in a panic, running around the doctor's office like a trapped animal. Find another kidney, she begged. I'll pay anything. Miss, it's not about money, the doctor said patiently. A matching organ can't be found on such short notice. What happened to the donor you had arranged? Chloe was silent, her eyes darting to me. I saw it then. Checkmate. My plan was about to succeed. The surgery was scheduled for the next afternoon. As they wheeled us both toward the operating theater, Chloe's gaze never left Julian. She clutched his hand, whispering words of comfort. Chloe, he said, when I get out of this, will you marry me? She nodded, tears streaming down her face, only letting go of his hand when the nurses insisted. She didn't even glance at me. 3 hours later, Julian was wheeled out, a new life ahead of him. I died on the operating table. My spirit, however, floated out of the room, following him. I watched as Chloe rushed to his side, weeping with joy when the doctor announced the surgery was a success. She glanced briefly toward the closed doors of the operating room before following Julian to recovery. A few minutes later, a gurney was wheeled out. On it was my body, my eyes wide and staring. My best friend, Mark, collapsed to the floor, his body shaking with sobs. "I'll do what you asked, Leo," he choked out. "I promise. You can rest now." He pulled himself together and started toward the morgue, but Chloe appeared in the hallway, blocking his path. "Which room is Leo in?" she asked. "What does it matter to you?" Mark spat, his voice filled with venom. "He knew everything. He told me he never wants to see you again. Leave him alone." "If you won't tell me, I'll find out myself," she snapped. As she turned to leave, Mark shouted after her. "Go ahead and ask. You'll never find him. But he did ask me to tell you something. When you and Julian get married, he'll be there." Chloe froze, her body rigid. But after a moment, she continued walking, disappearing down the corridor. Julian's recovery went smoothly. Chloe devoted herself entirely to him, and in the weeks that followed, she never once asked about me. I thought perhaps she had already forgotten, but it didn't matter. I would make her remember. Soon after, Julian was discharged. That very day, in front of the hospital, he got down on one knee. "Chloe, will you marry me?" To my surprise, she hesitated. But under the pressure of the crowd, she eventually nodded, letting him slide the ring onto her finger. I remembered when I had proposed to her. She had berated me for doing it in public, calling it tacky and embarrassing. It had taken me a month to win her forgiveness. Now look at her. She was smiling. On the wedding day, Chloe was breathtaking in a white gown. The groom, thankfully, was not me. At 12:18 p.m., the ceremony began. The officiant told their love story, a tale of devotion and reunion that moved the guests. And now, the bride and groom will exchange rings. "Wait," a voice boomed from the back of the room. It was Mark. He walked slowly down the aisle, holding a polished wooden box. "I have a wedding gift for the bride." "Mark, what are you doing here?" "Where's Leo?" Chloe asked, scanning the crowd. "Stop looking. He's dead." Mark's voice cracked with rage. "He died on the day of the surgery. You killed him." He thrust the box into her hands. "This is Leo's urn. These are his ashes. This is his wedding gift to you." Chloe's eyes went wide with horror. She stared at the box, her entire body beginning to shake. "No!" she shrieked, a sound of pure agony. She shoved Mark aside, snatching the urn and clutching it to her chest, as if it were a lifeline. "No, this isn't real. Leo, how could you leave me like this?" "Chloe, what are you doing?" Julian hissed, his face a mixture of anger and embarrassment. "This is our wedding." She ignored him, grabbing the microphone from the officiant. "I'm sorry, everyone," she announced, her voice trembling but loud. "The wedding is canceled. It's a funeral now. You are welcome to stay, or you can leave." "Chloe, have you lost your mind?" Julian roared. The guests erupted in a chorus of shocked whispers, but Chloe was in her own world. She hugged the urn, her eyes vacant, rocking back and forth. "Leo, my Leo, where are you?" she mumbled. "Please don't leave me." I said yes. "I'll marry you. Please, just come and get me." Floating above the chaos, I watched her unravel. And I smiled. This was it. This was the result I wanted. But as I smiled, a strange thing happened. Tears began to fall, not from my eyes, but from my very essence. The sorrow washed over my soul, and I began to dissolve, my form turning to smoke, fading into nothing. "Chloe, may we never meet again, in this life or any other."